I don't have any like big regrets. There's not something I would do incredibly differently, but I just think it's important. There's no wrong way to have a business. I think that right now, so many business coaches are saying, the riches are in the niches and you have to niche down and very specifically. And I think that, I'm not an expert in this, but I think that is true about like online businesses that you do kind of need to have a narrow niche, but there's no wrong way to have a business. It can be in person, it could be hybrid, it could be virtual. I get local people from doctor's offices, but you can do it online. So I guess that's one thing. I only thought there was one way to do things, and that's the way I did it. And things are just different now. But yeah, there's no wrong way, and whatever feels good to you is what you need to do.
Hello, everybody. We are live here once again. I am here with Amy Shults. And Amy Shults is the owner of AMS Nutrition Counseling in Western New York, where she offers individualized, real-life nutrition counseling and education for diabetes as a certified diabetes care and education specialist. Amy has additional expertise in the care of blood pressure, cholesterol, and women's health. So I'm very excited to have her here today. Welcome, Amy.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's maybe start out with how you got started on this journey with you work with a variety of people, but let's maybe how you sort of landed with the diabetes care, first of all.
Sure. So my second job as a dietitian was at kind of an interesting job where we did one-on-one patient counseling, and we were embedded in different doctors' offices. So sometimes I was working with pediatrics, but then other hours of the week I was with adults, and the focus was diabetes. Almost all of my adult patients had diabetes, and I actually worked alongside a clinical pharmacist, which was incredibly valuable. So sometimes we would meet with the patient in the same room. So the patient would sit down and I would talk about nutrition with the patient. And then the pharmacist would do like a med rec where they would go go over their medications. And I learned so much about the diabetes medications and things like that. So that's what made me really be passionate about helping people with diabetes. And then I ended up taking at the time it was called the CDE exam, and now it's the CDCES credential and exam. So that's kind of how I started. Ended up not working there anymore. I kind of had some tough times, to be honest. I was working at a hospital part-time. I was working at someone else's, like another dietitian's private practice. I was working part-time at a doctor's office. I was just looking for full-time work, and I couldn't find a job that I thought I'd be a good fit for, that they wanted the diabetes educator credential. So I kind of thought, like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on my own. And so I opened a private practice. And I don't know, I wasn't, that wasn't ever really my plan, but here I am 7 years later.
Yeah, you know what? It sounds like what you're hinting at is something I think a lot of us kind of learn throughout we sort of are led to believe that our credential, dietitian and all the, accoutrements that we might add to it are going to be so highly valued in the workplace. And then we kind of get out there and we're like, wow, the sort of employers aren't really going to take care of me in the way that I need to be taken care of. And sometimes we start to realize, like, if I really want the life that I want and the guaranteed income potentially and lifestyle that I want, then I might have to take care of it myself, which I think is, that's got some major pros and cons because it says a lot about the industry and the struggles that some of us face. And it also says a lot about our ability to get our own needs met. So that's just sort of what I'm thinking. And I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah. So it's sort of like, ooh, I'm not sure that I'm going to be taken care of in the workforce. I need to have a backup plan where there's something for me to fall back on to take care of myself is really essentially. So what were some of the initial steps in private practice? Like, did you go all in? Did you just start, maybe taking one or two clients at once? What was your sort of build looking like?
So when I started my practice, it was actually one of 3 jobs. I was working at a doctor's office, and they actually did treat me very well, and I did like being there, but they didn't need someone. It was a primary care doctor's office. They didn't need someone full time. I was just there part time. So I worked there. I was working at another dietitian's private practice, and I opened up my own. So definitely working a lot, but not necessarily a lot in my practice directly. And so first steps, I feel kind of like a dinosaur talking about just 7 years ago. In the grand scheme of things, that's not that long ago. But 7 years ago, I didn't even know that you could have a virtual practice. Like I thought, like I need to meet people in person. Like that's the only option available. I had some local colleagues that were kind of like renting kind of exam room space from doctor's offices. So they might, on Monday work at this doctor's office from 8 to 5, doing their own billing, like having their own practice, but they might like actually pay rent at that doctor's office. They might be in like a just small cramped exam room, or they might be in like a nice conference room or something. And so I tried to do that. I tried to contact different doctors' offices and say, hey, I would love to rent office space from you. And they were especially one doctor in particular, was very eager to refer to me. But when I said, oh, and I could be in your office, he was like, I don't want to figure out the logistics of that. Like I'm a busy guy. And the kind of one thing with him is, at the time he was renting his own office space, and he was like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to rent space to you. Like I'd have to talk to my landlord about my lease. Like, is this subleasing? And he was like, just like, give me your card and tell me where to send people. So I was like, well, I guess I have to take the leap of like getting physical office space. LoopNet is a website that is great to find local office space. So there's like, if you're trying to open up a store or a restaurant or something, that's the website you go to. So that's where I found my first office. I'm in my second office now, second location. I moved from one location to another, I should specify. Just a few minutes down the street, basically. So I rented this little office space. I think it was like 200 to 300 square feet. It's actually kind of a big room, but a small space. But it was in a medical office. So we had a shared waiting room and a shared bathroom that it was not my responsibility to clean or like pay a service to clean. That was included. And there was a primary care doctor's office right across the hall from me, and then another doctor's office that referred to me. So I did kind of just built it and hoped that they would come, and they did. So.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't realize in the beginning is that this isn't an all or nothing proposition. You can quite frequently find medical offices or a therapy office or some kind of healthcare office where there is office space to rent either by the hour sometimes, or just one day or a half day or multiple days. You can start that way. So I think that's a really, really good tip. And so you mentioned a website called LoopNet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So LoopNet is a great place to search. That's going to be like it's office space that's yours. If you're looking to, rent space from a therapist or a doctor's office or something, I feel like you kind of need to know somebody. And I apparently didn't really know anyone. I couldn't really kind of make those connections. So I had to, sign a lease with a landlord. It was a 2-year lease, which was, kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
but my rent wasn't that expensive, I think, at the time. Also, where I live, it has a very different cost of living than where you live. But I think it was like $350 a month. So, if something happened and you had to pay 2 years of that, that's not like life changing.
Right. Yeah. And so you had a physical space, and at the time, like for most of us 7 years ago, no, telehealth was not a thing, right? You might only do that if it was some emergency, or, a person wasn't able to get to your office physically, right? So, the world has definitely changed in the past, 2 to 3 years for sure. Maybe it'll go back. I don't know, but you have decided to stay predominantly in a physical space. And do you do any telehealth at all? Like, are there cases where you will do more virtual stuff, or are you?
Yeah, so it's really the patient. The patient always has the option. I am an insurance-based practice. I don't have any insurance companies that are funny about telehealth. So it's always the patient's choice. I would say, if I had to guess a percentage, I would say 85% of my appointments are in person. I see a wide variety of clients. I used to see a lot more elderly patients. I feel like I don't as much anymore, but like they don't generally want to do telehealth. They want to come to a physical office and not deal with the tech part of things. So yeah, I would say the majority, but I have some patients. I do have someone who's like an hour away from me, and it just doesn't, like, why would they drive here? But then I have someone who basically lives across the street, and she's like, I just want to do telehealth. Like, why would I drive? Like, she's very close, but she's like, no, just right after work, I log off and I still sit at my computer and I see you. And yeah, that's just her preference.
Mm-hmm. Good. So you might say you have a hybrid kind of practice.
Yeah, I guess so.
The option, but most people tend to prefer to come in person. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So insurance, working with diabetes, you're probably more likely to get some automatic insurance coverage, right, than some other specialties.
Mm-hmm.
How have you always done insurance? Was that sort of like from the get-go?
Yes. Also, something I was kind of naive about 7 years ago. I never even thought that people would be willing. I mean, a significant amount of people would be willing to pay out of pocket to meet with me. I don't want to say that I didn't have the confidence, but like, again, I work with a wide variety of people. And that first job that I had doing one-on-one nutrition counseling, I would say I had a lot of patients that weren't really motivated to change. They were never forced to come see me, but I think sometimes it was kind of proposed that way of like, you were just diagnosed with diabetes. We're going to schedule you with the dietitian and the pharmacist. So, kind of all over the readiness to change scale. So I just thought, like, it's hard enough. These people aren't crazy about seeing me in the first place. Like, no one's going to pay to see me. I definitely have a very different mindset now. And, I understand. I think I always understood that what I'm providing is very valuable. But yeah, so I just thought that you had to take insurance. In the previous private practice I was working at, that was an insurance-based practice. In the doctor's office I worked at, I actually helped them. I already had a good understanding of billing, so I kind of helped create that position and helped, talked with the billing manager of, okay, these are the CPT codes we use, and these are the, medical policies for the different local insurance companies. So I just felt pretty confident and knowledgeable taking insurance. So I just never really thought about doing it differently.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know every plan is going to be different. And of course, in every state, the rules are going to be different for everything. But as far as your process, do you always get a referral from a physician or healthcare provider, or can they just come in and say, hey, I need help with management of my diabetes?
Sure. So I do not need a referral. I know where you are in California, you have to have a referral, even if you're not going through insurance. We do not require that. Medicare does require a referral, and you have to get the referral every calendar year, which is challenging. But besides that, you generally don't need a referral. Just with billing insurance, I can use the, I don't know, not everyone's going to be familiar with billing, but Z7 1.3 is an ICD-10 code that we don't need documentation for. So some of the plans I work with take Z7 1.3. Not all of them do, though. So I don't necessarily need a referral, but I can't diagnose a patient with diabetes. I need some sort of documentation that like E11.9 or whatever the ICD-10 code is. So that could be a variety of things. It could be a referral. I don't know the name of it, but in this area, we have something called Healthy Link, where as a healthcare provider, I can log in and then I can look up a patient and see some of their medical records, not necessarily everyone's note, but like their primary care doctor's note could be in there. I used to not have access to that. So then I'd have to contact the doctor's office and say, this is a sheet of paper that the patient signed. Can you send a most recent progress note in labs? And then I'll just kind of like steal the code that's on there.
Right. So what it sounds like you're saying is, if the patient doesn't come in with a referral or a diagnosis or anything like that, obviously we can't diagnose, but you can just chart with dietary counseling and surveillance. Mm-hmm. And if it turns out that you need more information, then you can solicit the referral or the medical records from their primary care.
Yeah, and I just personally like to get their medical records anyway. I have I get this a lot where people are saying, I have pre-diabetes, and then I get their medical records, and it's like, well, it says type 2 diabetes, or like, oh, I think my blood pressure is normally fine. It's like, well, that's because you're on a blood pressure medication. Those things don't happen all the time, but it's just nice to look at their medication list, look at their problem list. So even if I wasn't billing, I think I still just want that information anyway.
Yes. So this leads to a couple questions. Do you have a dedicated fax?
Yes. So my electronic health record is Calyx Health, which they actually do have faxing capabilities. But when I started with them 8 years ago at this point, when I was kind of preparing for things, they didn't have fax. So I go through SR fax, and I think they've changed a little bit, but now I think they have two separate plans where you can just use SR fax like personally to fax whatever you want to fax. But then they do have a separate HIPAA compliant. You have to pay a little bit more, but it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think that one's about $15 a month for the HIPAA compliant one. Yeah.
Yes, it depends on super easy. Yeah, like you can sign up for, I think I can use 500 pages a month or something. So yeah, there's different tiers.
Yeah. And they'll send you an email saying you've got a fax, and then you just log in, boom, it's right there. It's by no means the only one. I'm not trying to proselytize for this particular company because I have no vested interest, but it is one option that's kind of reasonable. And it's, like I just got an email the other day from a physician saying, I have someone that wants me to fax over their stuff. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness I have something. Because before I didn't have one, and I'd have to say, well, you got to mail it. And because I just was so like, I don't want to pay for a fax machine that's dead. Like, why do we still use faxes? And
right.
Realistically, I just gave in. I've ended up having to give in on a lot of things that I refused to pay for in the past. So and then it becomes like, we can sort of talk about the business side of things. These things start to count as expenses against your tax burden. So, that's, one way to look at it. Yeah. How do you manage your finances? Do you have an accountant? Do you do it on your own? Like what sort of, do you feel like you're on top of that? And is that something that took you a while to get on top of?
I do feel like I'm on top of it. So I used to have QuickBooks, and I actually recently in the last year changed to Wave. Highly recommend. It is free. It doesn't do everything that QuickBooks does, but I wasn't using any of those things. Like I just need it to tell me how much money I'm bringing in and how much money I'm spending. So I am lucky. My husband is not a tax accountant. But he knows about like he is an accountant and he knows enough about accounting to be able to pay my quarterly taxes, do my books, and then pay our taxes at the end of the year. I think if my business got any more complicated than it currently is, I would just meet with a CPA and pay for their services. That's actually that's what I attempted to do. When I first started, I met with a CPA, and I just don't think that person was the CPA for me. I didn't really feel like I was getting anything out of it. I felt like my Google searches were providing me more information than what he was. So yeah, I do kind of have a unique situation there.
But the point is, you have help with that part, right? Mm-hmm. And, I know for sure there are people in our audience that are really good with math and numbers and accounting and taking care of finances, and they can do this on their own. And that's great. And maybe they're the ones that are like, I'm not doing my website. I'm not, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are those of us that are like, no, but I want to take care of my website, but, forget it with the right financial stuff. I'm going to hire someone or outsource it. Or if I had a partner or someone else in my life to do that. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just a really important point that you've been able to outsource that. Right. And so you use Calyx, you've got SR Fax. What else? Let's just talk about marketing. So you get your referrals from, definitely from physicians, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Medical providers, and probably if you're on an insurance list, you might get some referrals from there. Do you get referrals from other places?
So I was actually asking my assistant, I said, like, these days, what would you say the percentage of new people, like, where are they coming from? And right now, definitely the highest, she said, I think like 80% are from doctor referrals, which is kind of a high number for me. I'm definitely like very business ebbs and flows, and I'm unusually busy the last few months. I'm like almost kind of overwhelmingly busy, to be honest. So yeah, mostly doctors' referrals. I do get some people who say like, oh, my doctor referred me to a dietitian that doesn't take my insurance, or they just said, see a dietitian. And so they Googled me. That was kind of a large portion of my business for a while. If people searched nutritionist near me or dietitian near me, I would pop up. So I think you do need a website to do that. I don't think you can link it to like a Facebook page, but maybe you can. You want to have a Google business page. So if you are looking up dietitian or dentist or salon or something near me, or like, in Lockport, New York, there's that map that shows up, and it's free, but like you need to be on the map to show up.
Yeah, that is for sure. And I think it really helps to have a physical business address. I think that there are definitely workarounds, and I'm not the one to answer that question, but for people who only work out of their home and do not want their home address popping up on the Google search, there are ways around that. And that's an outside of this conversation, but the Google My Business is really, really important to have. Yeah, I agree with you. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your assistant. Mm-hmm. What role does your assistant have? What are you delegating? Like, how is that division of responsibility working?
Yeah, so I guess to take a step back a little bit is I was a solopreneur. I did everything myself, minus, like I did start out. I did meet with an attorney to talk about paperwork and my business structure and kind of things like that. And then, my husband was doing some of my books and finances, but everything else was all me. And I just got to a point where I was just being burnt out, and I was always doing 10 things at once, and I was starting to make like silly mistakes and kind of like dropping the ball on things. So I just kind of knew like I have to outsource something. I decided to go the route of hiring an assistant. Like, she physically comes to the office and is here. She's a W-2 employee. She's not a 1099. W-2 employees are ones that like are on your payroll and you're paying taxes. It's not from a financial standpoint, I don't think it's like the smartest move, honestly. Like they're more expensive than outsourcing in some other ways. But I knew I didn't want to outsource my billing. Like I could have hired a billing company, but I am very particular about my billing, and I want to know what are all the local insurance plans saying their coverage is. Like that's something that my assistant does now, but I still have direct supervision of that. And if, sometimes she'll get off the phone and say, oh, United Healthcare said this, like, isn't that strange? Like I'm still a part of that conversation. And I have a physical location. There is a bathroom and a waiting room and other spaces that need to be cleaned. And at one point, like I was like in my heels, like scrubbing the toilet. And I could have hired a cleaning company, but it's like it's such a small office. It takes like 30 to 45 minutes to clean. Why am I paying a company to come all the way out here? Like, how much is that going to cost? You could hire a VA, you could do all sorts of things. I really decided that I want a human being in my office. So when I'm in an appointment, she's only part-time, so she's not here all of the time. But when someone walks in the door for the first time and they're nervous about, nutrition counseling, and my office door is shut because I'm still with a patient, there's a smiling face saying like, hi, welcome to the office. Did you find the place okay? Would you like a bottle of water? Like that's just kind of the experience I wanted to have. And as an employee that's physically here, like anything I need done, I can tell her to do it and she will do it. So she has her regular tasks where like once a week she cleans the whole office. She answers the phone and returns phone calls. Majority of the people, we do have the option of booking appointments online, but most people are like picking up the phone and making an appointment with me. So she does that. And so then people will schedule an appointment and she'll say, okay, well, you have, this insurance plan. And then we do call. So she calls the insurance company to verify benefits. And then, she kind of gets that ready for the appointment. She checks the faxes, she, incoming and outcoming faxes, she puts in the electronic health record, but she's also there for anything I need. Not too long ago, I came to work and my computer didn't work. And I had a whole day of appointments and like it was just a black screen. She has a laptop and I said, I need to use your computer. Can you like find out who can fix our computer and take it there? So she, got on Google and found a local computer place and drove it there. So I had to pay her mileage to go there. So not that that's a typical situation at all, but otherwise I probably would have just had to cancel all my patients for the day to figure out what was going on with my computer. Also, something that's nice in having a person is when you're a solopreneur, you make all of these decisions by yourself. And sometimes like I just need another opinion or like, can you proofread this email before I send it? Or do you think I should make this handout this color or that color? And then more important decisions too. Again, I feel like for me, like my spouse was kind of someone I was going to all the time. Like, what do you think about this? And I got a negative review on Facebook years ago and I was so distraught about it. And, I needed to talk to someone about it. So I talked to him, but now I have someone in my office that I pay her to help troubleshoot things with me like that.
Right. Yeah. It really sounds like you've got like a full service kind of business, right? On, the patient client facing end. Mm-hmm. And then on your end, it's like you have so much help and support to be able to manage all of these things, right? It's when you take on an employee, I don't have an employee, but I imagine like you're really responsible for their livelihood in addition to your own. And it's different from having somebody who's virtual. It's different from taking on interns, right? You really have someone there that's kind of maybe not a full partner, but they're partnering in certain aspects of your business. Yeah. So I think that's really great. I like that model. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you said that you've been getting really busy. What is busy for you? Is that like how many the number of patients, the number of new patients? Is it the severity of patients? How do you determine what busy means?
Sure. So I think busy for me is probably like a standard week. For other people, I can see how one-on-one, you could get to the point of burnout. Like I can't see people all day, every day, just appointment after appointment after appointment. So I actually track billable units. So when you're billing insurance, a 15-minute increment is a billable unit. So this week, I'm probably going to hit like 75. And that's after like someone canceled for this upcoming Friday. So that's at the end of the day, how many people I actually saw. So that's, what is that, like 17, 18 hours of like direct patient contact. Like 50 units would kind of be more of a normal for me. So I generally see patients Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but Mondays and Wednesdays are a very long day. It's like a 10-hour day. And then some Tuesdays I come in to see patients, but then Tuesdays and Thursdays are they used to be my admin day, but now I have an admin, but still like catching up on notes, doing CEUs, catching up on personal appointments. And, I'm not necessarily working the whole day on those work from home days.
Right. So it sounds like there's some work-life balance.
Yeah, so trying to do that. When I first started, I just was like, oh yeah, this person can't come in until 6:30 for their appointment. Yeah, I'll come on in. And then I had a child and my husband was like, you have to come home. So then really like setting some boundaries there of, okay, this is like work has to end at this time. And if that means I have to say no to a patient and refer them to another dietitian that has Saturday hours, then that's it. It is what it is.
Right. So you do not work weekends?
No. Mm-mm.
Great. How much time do you take off, like vacations or holiday time, or what do you per year? Maybe how many days or weeks? Hopefully weeks.
So I'm in an interesting stage of life where I have two young children. They're in daycare full time. I feel like we don't take that many vacations. Like we actually like went on a vacation this summer because I'm still getting over a cold. We're always sick and having to take off time because the kids are sick or we're sick. So we're not vacationing that much right now or having a lot of leisurely time, but I think that's just kind of like the state of life I'm in right now.
Right. But you do find that if you needed to take time off, you could take time off.
Oh yeah, I took 2 maternity leaves and I was able to pay myself that entire time because I saved up enough money to be able to do that.
Amazing.
So yeah, it can work. I can't say like, I do sometimes think it's kind of easier when you work for someone. Like this is how many PTO days you get and you know how much money you're going to bring in and you know how many days off you're allowed to take. So I can't say it's like easy, and it is easy to just never take a day off. Well, I don't get PTO. I'll just work. So I'm still there's definitely options, but I'm still kind of working on that personally.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an ongoing issue. So we're to the end pretty much. Do you have a couple minutes? I have another couple questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. So one of the interesting things I think about your practice, and we really focus on the diabetes aspect, but you don't just do diabetes, you do some other things too. And so my question is about your decision to not just stick to your niche and to broaden. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So again, 7 years ago, I just thought that dietitians had to do it all. When I worked at the doctor's office, I did, specialize in diabetes, and the providers knew that, okay, we should be referring all our patients with diabetes to Amy. But anyone else that had a nutritional concern was sent to me as well, minus eating disorders. I made it very clear that that needs to be referred out to someone that has knowledge and experience in that. But besides that, it was kind of like, yeah, see Amy. So as time has gone on, I've kind of started to refer out more. There's not a ton of local dietitians in my area that have specific niches, but the ones that do, I'm sending them business kind of regularly. Like this person's sports nutrition, go over there. This one's eating disorders, go over there. There's a practice in my area that they're all like functional, kind of like functional dietitians. So I'll send people that way because that's just not really how I practice. So I like to consider myself a semi-specialty where I see people with diabetes and pre-diabetes. And it seems like other dietitians in the area know that. So sometimes I'll get referrals of just a dietitian I know that her job, she doesn't see people one-on-one, and their aunt said, oh, I was just diagnosed with diabetes. What should I do? Oh, go see Amy. So people kind of know I'm the diabetes dietitian, but still, I'll kind of really see not anyone, but, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, doctors love to tell their patients to lose weight. So they're often referring to me for like weight management and just a variety of concerns, which is nice because then doctors just kind of want, what's the dietitian in the area? Let's send them the patients. They don't want to know, okay, well, this dietitian sees this and this dietitian does this. They just don't really have time for that.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're sort of the referral hub where the doctor's going to refer to you because they know you. And then if it's something that you're not really either wanting to or qualified to work with, or someone can do it better, then you're going to refer out.
Yes. And actually, strangely enough, that's one of my favorite phone calls, when someone calls and said, oh, I'm looking for help with this. And I say, you know what, I really want you to have a great experience with a dietitian. And I don't think either of us are going to have a great experience. You should call this person. And they're always so thankful, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you gave me the phone number of someone else or the web address of someone else. Like, I really appreciate this.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. Team player, you're a real team player in this. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important for us as dietitians to really stick together and just not get into competition with each other. It's just that's holding us back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so final question, comment is for people who are either just starting or struggling to start or even trying to make that decision. The question is either what kinds of pearls of wisdom would you have, or if I had known then what I know now, here's what I would have done differently.
I don't have any like big regrets. There's not something I would do incredibly differently, but I just think it's important. There's no wrong way to have a business. I think that right now, so many business coaches are saying, the riches are in the niches and you have to niche down and very specifically. And I think that, I'm not an expert in this, but I think that is true about like online businesses, that you do kind of need to have a narrow niche. But there's no wrong way to have a business. It can be in person, it could be hybrid, it could be virtual. I get local people from doctors' offices, but you can do it online. So I guess that's one thing. I only thought there was one way to do things, and that's the way I did it. And things are just different now. But yeah, there's no wrong way, and whatever feels good to you is what you need to do, even if people are saying, oh, well, virtual is so much cheaper, but I like the feel of having an office, and I don't know, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nice. That's a great place to end our conversation. Thank you immensely for showing up and being so candid about your work. And I hope that our viewers and listeners enjoyed this. And thank you all. We will be with Zaina Flout at the end of the week on Friday. So hopefully you can join us then. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.